Martini, most people know you as being from Pink Martini.
Yes, it's a country south of Ecuador called Pink Martini.
But who are you really?
Well, I didn't know this was going to be a psychoanalysis.
Everything is.
But
no,
who am I really?
I'm just kidding.
How long do I have to answer that?
50 minutes. Yeah, 50 minutes, and then I'll cut you off, no matter where you are in the analysis. Now, I mean, this album is very diverse. So tell us about the album a little bit.
Well,
where to start?
Well, the album is called $2 to Ride the Train.
Yeah.
It's the title track. It's not the first track, and there's a reason for the order of songs, but it's an album that is mostly focused on songwriting, and for me as a musician, of course, I like to get into the structural aspects of how we put music together.
Yeah.
A big part of that was the use of rhythm, the use of rhythm in the melodic information and in the accompaniment and in all of the layers of the production. The use of rhythm and the diversity of rhythms that are on the album are kind of key to the concept of the album. I called it a while back in another interview. I think I referred to the album as being the story of transformation and common origins in terms of the African influence rhythmically throughout the world, and it sort of echoes the story of my life in a way, because I grew up in Peru playing Afro-Peruvian music. I was in London for a long time with mostly South African friends and friends of my family. And that was a big influence on the way I hear music. I also, I've lived in the United States, in which the popular music is heavily influenced by African rhythms and so on and so forth. I'm a big fan of Cuban music and Brazilian music, and I played all of those things for several years. So that was that is embodied in the album, and I like to make that connection between my own story and the story of humanity. I think that we're all microcosms of the great cosmos.
There are a lot of great jazz musicians on this album, but it's not really a jazz album, is it?
It's for me the term jazz is sort of unruly and it's hard to pin down. What is it? I have a really hard time with.
And it means so many things to so many different people.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I made the mistake of looking up the origin of the word once, and it's quite interesting. We won't get into it now.
It's like funky, like funk.
Right.
Yeah. I saw a documentary on George Clinton the other day, and one of the band members said, "You couldn't say the word funk in public."
That's right. And I think that it all stems from musicians being typically fun, quirky people. So we come up with all these terms, and who knows what the next thing will be. But we play with language, we play with sound. Language and sound to me are linked, and we make a game out of it, and terms come out, and then they catch on in the greater sphere, and they become packaged and sold. But that's not really why they came to be in the first place. And so this album to me also was kind of a testament to the fact that musical genres are really hard to stay within. If you're a musician, you tend to skip around and you take in whatever you hear, and you make something out of it. So the album goes through things that some people might perceive as jazz, to many things that a lot of people would perceive as pop music. Some things that are almost folky in their flavor, and through many languages as well, because having lived in several places, I just speak a few languages, and again, to me, the boundaries between language and language are not completely clear. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say that, but languages kind of blend into one another and come out of one another. And so when I think of language, I'm keeping in mind who I'm speaking to and what vocabulary they might understand. But to me, it's kind of all one big language. All the words I know are words I know, and it's the same with music.
Yeah, yeah. So you were talking about the sequencing of the songs. What was the concept there?
Right, right. Oh, well, let me give it a shot. It's somewhat subconscious, but juggling 18 tracks and finding an order is kind of daunting.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not seem like a lot, but
it does seem like a lot.
When you try to,
oh, no, it really does.
Okay.
It does.
Well, yeah. So when you try to put a set list together or an order of stories, and they weren't written in a sequence, and to find a sequence for them, a lot of these things were written simultaneously, and they're very different in theme sometimes, and so what do you do with it all? And so to find a balance between all of that, it's a bit of a challenge. So I kind of left it up to a couple of things happen. I got Dave Egar, who co-produced the album with me. He's from New York. He's a cellist and pianist. Fantastic musician. Look him up, Dave Egar. He's on Wikipedia.
The link is above this screen.
Right.
Yes.
Is it? Okay,
yes.
Great. Well, he suggested that I start with Morning Sun. And then when I saw that, when I started putting that into context, I realized that that was one of the two songs that did not really have any real percussive thing going on. And so I thought, there's a bracket to the whole group. There are two songs that don't really have this very African rhythm underpinning, and so let's make those the brackets of the story, sort of like the Greek chorus in an ancient Greek play. It's kind of this ethereal thing that happens sort of around the earthly story, right? And so that kind of set the stage for me to then find the order of the other songs. I try to make it flow kind of like a day, sort of like the way I experience a day, as much as the tracks would allow.
Yeah.
And then the story that we already touched on was this idea of rhythms pervading and informing our lives.
So, if we were to preview a track for the people, what do you think that would be?
What is your audience like? What do you think they would like? I think everyone's different in that sense.
Well, we're an all-genre magazine.
Yeah.
So, and everybody likes more than one kind of music.
Well, so you're free to preview more than one.
Well, tell us one. Tell us one that we can put, and we'll put it right below the screen.
Well, let's see. I would pick. You mean as a link?
Yeah. In a player.
Oh, okay. So I have two on SoundCloud already. I would say the title track is not a bad place to start. It's a song that's very dear to me, and it's fun. It's sort of an all. It's a family-friendly kind of track. But there is more to it. It isn't just a nursery rhyme, although it has that kind of quality. $2 to Ride the Train, I think, is a good place to start.
Let's start there.